Hello, everybody. I'm Tal Griffin. Uh, how are y'all today?
Doing pretty good.
Well,
Good.
uh, good. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. Uh, well, what what I was going to be talking on today is principles versus idealisms, and that the first question I'd like to put out is, what are people's thoughts and definitions of what idealism is versus what their principles are? And how do you define those amongst yourselves and your living daily along this path? Reason I ask those questions and bring that up is that in so many ways today, people are influenced by a distorted view and definition of both based on their idealisms of what in a singular thought or a distorted thought or disrupted thought of what should be. And in many ways, because of maybe our own shortcomings, our own flaws, and our own developments, we forget what our principles guide us through, what they guide us with, and what we hold to and what we value. And whether these idealisms are in our best interest or not, we want to, in some way, connect. But there comes a question that I don't think is asked is this in my best interest for the future? Sure, right now, it might seem like a great idea, but is this going to hold true for me down the road? And yes, it said we shouldn't worry about the future, but be mindful of it. Well, what we do with a idealism and an ideal may not hold and help us stay with our principles down the road. And then we might ask ourselves, what happened? Where did I misstep? And in this, we have to reflect and look back. And was it such a good idea? But of course, hindsight's always 2020, right? We learn from our experiences. But on the other side, sometimes venturing to investigate what these idealisms might hold, but we have to proceed with caution. We have to think about, how is this going to affect me and my interaction daily with other people? And is this still going to hold with something that sticks with my principles? Am I going to be true to myself? So, and that's mainly what we have to ask ourselves. Is this going to be true to me? And in some ways, some people may think that this is selfish. How is this going to benefit? How is this going to be true to myself? that is not a healthy way to look at it. Because if we aren't sticking with our principles, we are sacrificing our character. We are compromising our own beliefs as a person that are true to what we hold dear. And so it's easy to allow one small hint of truth to become a larger picture, because idealisms go with, in some way, something that we do believe in a way, and there is some factual truth to it. But as a whole, is it truly a factual truth? Now, I'm going to stop here for a minute. I'm going to let y'all ponder on that for a minute and let that brew and stew in your noggins for a bit. Let that stew and think, and let there be a moment of reflection of how, in some way in your lives, you have gotten caught up in an idealism versus your principles and how they've been counter to it. Let me give you all a moment to think about that. So, in that, does something come to mind where I cut myself short due to this idealism, due to an ideal? And in a way, in theory, ideals made to manifest by fundamentally may not be bad. They might have causes all the way through. There might be a cause behind it. There might be a reason. There might be a just cause behind it. Something very logical, something very rational. But as something that is wholesome and healthy for us, in many ways, I think not. In many ways, this causes a separation of what can actually provide benefit and that can become valuable to the masses. Because in this, and as Jedi, yes, we worry about ourselves individually to develop, to grow. But on the other hand, after that, there has to become a point where we have to stop being solely focused on ourselves and look for the greater picture, look for what's greater than ourselves. And it might take time, it might take a few years in order to become good with that, with ourselves, and how our principles do help define who we are. We don't define our principles. Our principles help define us. They're what gives us our integrity, our morals, our ethics, our responsibilities, our accountabilities. And then that provides us that living, that standard of living with ourselves that we try to hold ourselves to. And this is where can be confusing because if we think about what our principles hold and what we hold dear to and what we hold that does define us, sometimes it's easy to lose sight. We can get lost with ourselves. And in the most part, no one can really blame anybody but ourselves in that. But on the other aspect, if when we take that moment, and that moment can be just 15 minutes, or that moment could be a couple of days, and we figure out, where did I step wrong? What did I miss? But that's part of growth. That's part of figuring where our principles lay, true principles. Where does this help with our moral code? Where does this help with our compassion and our empathy, our grace and our mercy? If we stick to that, if we work with that, then we are holding ourselves to that standard and our principles. And ideals are great to hear because they might give us something to think about, something that challenges what we actually believe, which is in itself good. We always need our challenges, our thoughts, our minds challenged on this depth in this way. But also, in doing so, we have to remember what we hold ourselves to, what standard, what level do we hold ourselves to? And in the pursuit of principles, there does take an education over time. There's just not one place to get it from. And think back for a moment when you were a child. What was it our parents told us that helped develop those principles? And that you can't always believe what everybody tells you. Because on down the line, there's a game that was presented to me one time that, here, I'm going to tell you something, and then you go tell your brother. And then your brother's going to go tell somebody else. How much of that true message was actually still true to what was said in the beginning? Which in a way, then it becomes a rumor, which then can become a falsehood. And then we follow that based on that one initial bit of truth, we've lost our way due to an idealism, which people hold idealisms as factuals, as how it actually is. Well, idealism is what we think something should be, and what we think and believe, when in actuality, that is how we would like to see things, how we would like things to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. We all have our view and our thoughts about, man, this would be nicer, this would be more easy, and this would be more comfortable if it were this way. But that's not the way it goes. That's not the way life happens. It's not the way the universe has it. And the force definitely doesn't play it that way. It plays by its own rules. We have to learn to understand that. And idealisms are good. I mean, Jediism started from an ideal. Philosophies gathered, views gathered, people gathered. And in that developed into this wonderful thing. It's brought many people back into a different way of living, a better way of living. It's caused people to grow, right? But our principles is what helps us actually develop into that Jedi that we want to wake up and see in the mirror. Our principles are broken down into morals, ethics, character, integrity. And those are what we have to hold ourselves to. We are responsible to that. We are accountable to that. And if we can't do that and hold ourselves to that, then why should we ask others to do the same? We can't, because then we are the one throwing stones in the glass house, which is hypocrisy in itself. So if we hold to what is a truth, what guides us, we will have a clarity. We will have and see what is in front of us. We can see that because it offers good judgment. It helps us detach from those things that can influence things that actually truly need to guide us. What actually is what keeps us in that direction that we should be going. Not the way we want to go, but the way we should be going. And in that, this is where we can grow. This is where we can learn. Because if we are going to learn to develop our principle and our character more, we have to learn from where we've erred, where we lost our step. It's inevitable. It's something we cannot avoid. But we have to ask ourselves those hard questions at times. Am I actually holding true to myself? And if not, then let's step back. So I'm going to leave. I'm going to hold there, and I would like some open dialogue and discussion about this as well. I'm just not going to take the whole hour. I've been known to take a whole hour and then some, but I want to hear y'all's thoughts on this also. So I'm opening the floor to y'all as well. Let's hear what you have to say.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, I'm Matthew Taylor. Madamus Core is my Jedi name, but
Hmm.
just to clarify, principle would be like honor, integrity, courage, commitment, loyalty, and then idealism would be like I think the world should be a utopia, or I think that the best person I could be is a master Jedi who is teaching young people how to be on the right path and so on and so on. Would that be a proper way to define the two?
Well, yeah. I think you have a good idea of it. Um, what you were mentioning about the integrity and everything, that
Okay, yeah,
yes, that is a great understanding of it because when we have that, okay, and I'm not trying to say this to put you down when I say this, but our integrity is what holds us to things. It's not what we're saying, it's what we're doing
right,
is where integrity comes from. And if you can hold to that, then your principles can fall in line with that. You have a great concept of that.
right.
And
And then
the,
you were saying that like idealism for self benefit at a certain point can
mhm,
actually be more toxic because yes,
yes,
we have to take care of ourselves first, and we have to uh, be on our path and take care of our business. And only once we're doing that can we really help others. But uh, if, say, my goal was to be the mayor of Savannah,
okay,
which it would never be because I'm not political, but
okay,
say if my goal was to be the mayor, and then I've got honor, commitment, loyalty, all these things as my principles. But along the way, somebody offers me a path that I could take that would guarantee me the seat of mayor, but
yeah,
I would have to basically uh, make a move that would damage, say, half of the city that all my friends and family live in. But I could
hmm,
still get that position if I follow this path that's offered to me. Now, if I really have integrity, honor, and loyalty, I will say, no, I do not want to take that path. But if I just want to get there because I want to help myself, then I'd be like, forget them. I'm going, you know?
right,
So that, I mean, I'm kind of dummying it down here because that's pretty much the way I speak and communicate. And,
yeah,
and, but, when you first started talking about it, it was a little hard for me to understand, but I caught on, and I've learned in places that it's best to place principles over personalities because we all have personalities too, and when that gets in the mix, people can be like, "Oh, he's an asshole," but if he's got the right principles and he's trying to tell us, "Look, we need to do this, or something bad's going to happen to all of us," then we needed to move that personality to the side and listen to what he's trying to do, which is help his fellow man or woman or whoever.
right,
And so, yeah, I mean, I get it. And one of the things I'm dealing with right now is the fact that I've always had a problem with inappropriate social behavior,
okay,
and so I can be flirtatious with women,
right,
and it's not necessarily that I'm actually trying to make any kind of advance,
uh-huh,
but in my mind, you know, if it goes to the gutter real quick,
right,
just to hold on, let me go inside because the dogs are acting crazy.
no worries,
And, uh, and what I was saying though was, in my mind, I want to get my head out of the gutter as quickly as possible and get rid of that thought. So
right,
I'll make a joke, or I'll say something, and it's
hmm,
totally inappropriate for the area I'm in, or the women I'm in front of, or the
yeah,
younger people I'm in front of, and people actually take offense to it. And I'm thinking, geez, why are they taking offense to that? I didn't mean it that way, but it doesn't really matter. I'm trying to please my mind and get that thought out of my mind, and I'm saying something that's inappropriate that's bothering other people, which is against my principles.
okay,
So I'm learning myself right now
Yeah.
And I just talked to somebody about this. I'm learning that I have to find another way to deal with those thoughts and feelings that I have that go through my mind,
Right.
and I need to find a more positive way to either express them or just not express them until I can find somebody who I can talk to maybe get my mind right and
Well,
clear again.
right. Well, with what you were saying is that our first impulse is to want to, right? Okay.
Yes.
And that if we are looking to be better as that person, that, yeah, I want a girlfriend. Okay. But however, what if later down the road that unfiltered blurt joke or that unfiltered joke comes out in at initially, and that could have been possibly the person that was going to be someone you could be with for a while. But on the other side, we have to look at this from two sides. That yes, we all want to make a joke. Okay, we all want a joke try to appear in one way. We always want to try to come across in our best, right? But on the other side, and still be the same, be the person who we truly are. However, when we say something that is going to offend somebody, is it to try to pretend to be, or are we genuinely being? Okay. Or are we trying to gain points? All right. And that if we hold ourselves to, our morals, our ethics, our integrities and stuff, when we practice integrity, we can reflect and go, what did I say? And ask somebody, go, hey, what did I say? And then go, okay. And if there's a difficult moment of how it might be, the understanding might not be there, ask somebody to explain it to you in simplest terms.
Right.
Okay. All right. And that way it might sink and go, oh, because I've done the same thing. Okay. I have done exactly that and gone, uh, what did I do? What did I say? What did I do? And then go,
I'm laughing because the plaque my unit gave me in the Marine Corps when I was supposed to go to my next duty station, they put a quote on every Marine's plaque to kind of sum them up in a nutshell. And
right.
on mine they had in quotations, "What did I say wrong?"
Yeah.
So
But, the thing is, though, is that also think about back into your training as a Marine in boot camp. Okay. If you were to say this, are you going to cause everyone else around you to do 20?
hell yeah, and
Okay.
hell yeah,
Then that would be something you could reflect on, is this in my unit's best interest other than my own?
right, right.
All right. So
Now
thank
that I
you.
understand.
Okay. Thank you for your comment and question there. Somebody else.
So we're talking a lot about principles and having integrity to those principles. What it seems to me that you're saying is that those principles are things that we have to find within ourselves. I believe that one of the things that my husband has called it is like your first oh gosh, what is the word? It's like the root of everything that you base all of your principles on.
Hmm.
So, for example, some people would say, everything in my life is aligned with protecting my family. So,
Right.
all of my values and my principles build off of that first root
Yeah.
principle.
Right. Right.
There is an actual word for it, and I wish I could remember what it was. I'm not going into the other room to go
I know
ask
what he's.
him, but yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Um.
So my
And
question is, uh, that is a very general discussion to have that is applied to the general population. How do you see that this relates specifically to the Jedi path if we are personally defining our own principles instead of being defined by what the path says?
okay. Well, one of the things that in one of the lines and one of the words is knowledge, right? Okay. And ignorance yet knowledge. Okay.
Yes.
All right. If we are to grow and have our integrity and our character have a better foundation, wouldn't it be best if we were to find that enter that those defects, those things that affect what is causing us to fall short? And if
So
we can,
we are a social species, though, Dow.
yes, we are. Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
So our principles should align with the cultures that we are part of. It can't just be something that we feel in our souls. And understand, I've had this argument with Jedi before.
Right, right, right.
And that particular word, the like, it's what you feel in your soul. That phrasing kind of actually comes from a Jedi that I had a massive argument with
Hmm.
across a Facebook page, and ended up leaving that Facebook
Okay.
page's
Right,
like I didn't want to support them anymore. So but it's nothing against you. This is like
right,
I'm
right.
using that specific phrasing.
No, that's okay.
So the point is that if you say that everybody gets to individualize what their principles are, you should absolutely know what they were first so that you
Yeah.
know how to get to other principles,
Right,
because then
right.
you can roadmap. But if you are saying that we just inherently find it, how does that build a culture of Jedi in and of itself if we're all just doing our own thing?
Well,
So really, that's just an insight into yourself, which is fine. But is it really Jedi?
well, if we are to build this community into something better than it is, we have to start with ourselves. We have to build that and help others hold to that integrity. Am I walking this path to try to get a girlfriend? And then if that would be your cause and your purpose, then that's where you're going to look. That's what you're going to look for. And you're going to want to be using the name Jedi. So what is your motive?
Well, let me turn that back on you. What is your motive to be
My
a
motive
Jedi?
my motive is just what I've been doing is to improve the person I am and have been, to
So it's not a
learn.
right. So it's not an external, I want a girlfriend, I want to attract somebody.
No, it
So there
is
should be specific goals that are more aligned with the Jedi path than
then
like, or even Christianity. We can take this to Christianity. If
okay.
you are going to a church to attract people around you,
Right.
then you're not actually taking up what the point of being in that church is and trying to align yourself with that culture. You're trying to
No.
find people in that culture because you like what they have, and you believe that it's going to attract to you something that is the value set you're looking for in other people. but not
Yeah,
necessarily looking for in yourself.
right. It's with those things we hold to, if we hold our principles, that we are going to associate with people that are of that like mind, that do want to hold themselves to progression. And that if there is something we have to offer that's going to help pull somebody from where they are because of what we display and what we practice, then that will change overall.
Allie,
That
Allie,
that
was that
that person will overcome what has been affecting them. It's we have to develop ourselves and dig into what has been. And if it means that we have to honestly look at our motive, then if it comes that our motive has been dishonest, then we can change that, which that will improve what our principles are and our morals and our integrities and help improve our character. Hello?
Matt,
Allie?
you had something? Yes.
Yeah, was the word you were looking for instinctual or instinct?
No, that's not the word. No, I wouldn't be surprised if Miles actually knows the word I'm looking for.
Right,
Yeah, that's what
right,
I was about to.
right,
Hold on. You know what? I'm walking back here because I need the
right.
word.
So does
Nathan, I
that,
need the term. It is a word, it's the word that you and I use when we're talking about like the root basics of where all of your principles are derived from. You call it a first something.
First principle.
Oh, it is
First
a first
principles.
principle.
first
Yeah.
principle?
Okay.
Okay,
There we
okay.
go. Miles chimed
There he
in and was like,
is.
yeah, it's
There's
first
Miles.
principles.
Uh, so does that help with being more specific in what you were asking?
um, I get where you're going with it. And
Okay. Yeah.
I understand the value of trying to find yourself. Personally, I don't
Hmm.
believe that that is what Jedi should be doing. I believe that we should define as a community what those principles are instead of trying to find what our principles are.
Well, but it starts with each one that find where am I not aligning as well, you
Well,
know?
then
Well, but
you could say that we all basically have a first what was it? First principle of what? Spiritual progress or something of that nature, a generalized
I
term.
actually, so I would actually not agree that the first principle is something that is defined by the Jedi path.
Okay. So we should each have our
So
own individual
but what
first.
I'm saying is that we have virtues and values that
Hmm.
are more aligned in some areas than others, and
Right, right,
ethics
right,
that we align
right,
So
with. But
right.
if
I
we are
Okay.
totally
trying
agree
to
with that.
if we're trying to build our integrity, and this is where the whole class is going, if we're building our integrity to our own internal ones, we become our own individual person without cohesion to the culture that we are developing as a community, and where you find the people come together and work together more is when we start working towards the same principles, the same ethics, the same virtues, the same values. So I would say that it is important to know who you are, self-awareness, interior, absolutely, so that you know where you need to start
Right,
to build
right,
But
yourself towards what those community principles and
absolute.
ethics and virtues and values are.
right.
At the
Because
same time,
without,
though, you have to be careful with that because absolute conformity is pretty much the whole basis of the idea of an imperialistic or empire uh
well,
type of existence.
let's not go down that, let's not go down that road
Yeah, we're
in
not talking
this.
about strict
You're
adherence to
right.
you have to
Right.
follow it this way. We're
I
saying
just want
you
them.
have
I
to,
just want.
like, okay, for example, let's say in a general sense that you had responsible. There are
Hmm.
many ways that you can be responsible, and that is part of the culture and the concept of the idea. And how you are responsible is very dependent upon your role in
That's
society and in your
Right,
family.
Right.
But
That's
those are base principles. They are not specific to
right.
if
Right.
That's
A,
what.
then
Hang on,
B
hold on,
equals
guys.
C.
Hang on. Let's let one person speak at a time here, if y'all don't mind, okay? Because the interrupting and over and crossing over like that is, let's let a person finish their thought, okay? Let's do that. All right, thank you. As
Who's
you were,
going?
okay, Allie, as you were.
No, and that was it.
Okay,
That's
okay,
what I'm saying is that A plus B does not always equal C.
right.
A
May
and
I
B are
offer?
different things. Go ahead, Miles.
Sorry. I'd like to offer a new layer here.
Sure.
Um, I'd like to propose that we separate the notions of a cultural notion and an individual accountability. That these two things exist side by side. That
As
there is
balance.
a responsibility of an individual to determine their own integrity and how they wish to live up to it, because it's personal choice. But the cultural rules and norms that are going to be successful for the long-term duration of the culture is a different exercise. And that these two things intersect, but they're not dependent on one and the other being the same. So for example, uh, culture is a thing that has its own existence. It has its own life. It has its own lifespan. Culture modifies and changes in accordance with the challenges and disruptions that it runs into, because the culture is going to be whatever rules keep the society or community afloat. So you don't, it would be very challenging to do it in reverse, where we identify the ideal and then we build a community around the ideal. The usual pattern of cultural development goes the other way. People are identified together as a unified body, and then they need to figure out how to keep that unified body together. And through the failures and mistakes that they make, through the things that happen that break that unified body apart, you end up establishing cultural rules. And that's why in each area, or as each group or organization forms, that cultural norms are different between group and group and group. And that's true between different Jedi organizations, it's true between different towns, it's true between different clubs, it's true between any group of people. It's kind of that other notion of tribalism. Each tribe is going to have its own culture depending on what's most successful for that tribe to preserve its existence. Because if the tribe doesn't preserve its existence, it doesn't matter what your opinion is. There is no longer the unity, there's no longer the collective. So I would like to propose separating these as two separate notions. There is the ethical concerns of the culture, and there is the individual commitment to a personal ethic. How well that personal ethic and the reconciliation of that personal ethic with a cultural ethic is, how that works. And they are separate things. They do not need to be one and the same. In fact, I don't think they can be one and the same.
No.
And then how you reconcile that. Not only how you reconcile that as an individual, which is where your integrity comes in, but also how the culture reconciles that with you through a crime and punishment system, for example, as to taking it to an extreme. If your operations and your behavior is different than the ethics of the culture needs to correct that behavior or risk falling apart. And so I think these are two separate notions, and we're kind of conflating them in this conversation. Is that something of value? Is that a valuable way to consider the conversation?
I wanted to speak on that, Miles, because I think you hit it on the head as far as from my point of view. But as Jedi's, that we know that there has to be balance. So I agree that they're two different issues, but there has to be a balance between the two. And if somebody's to come to the Jedi community, there should be a, what was the term again for primary principle or whatever. If a person if a person doesn't have that principle, then they're probably trying to be a Jedi for the wrong reasons. Like one of those people you see that uh, that jump online and they're not doing a body, spirit, mind, life, or any seeking anything like that. They just want to get online and then talk about what a badass they are, or this, that, and the other. And you got people in there. Yeah, I'm sure there's people in there that come in there looking for a woman or whatever, because I hear about that in almost every facet of society I go to. But I think it's important that we do have a set amount of principles in the Jedi code, or our code, or however we apply it, uh, that Jedi should meet. And then, there's many different paths: the sage, the mystic, this, that, the other. Depending on where your aptitudes are, and depending on what your principles are, you might end up being a Jedi of a different type than somebody else, or you might have something else that you just bring to the table naturally. Because my problem has a lot of times has been the fact that I feel like I have to, make everybody laugh and make everybody feel comfortable and da 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 da. And obviously, I also have a problem knowing when to shut up. So I'll finish right
Well,
there.
but but
You're good.
but we have to look at that in that, okay, that yes, somebody might come in and be a troll. However,
They're
somebody,
not always trolls.
well, yes, there's always going to, but if a person comes in and does that, somebody could and will say something that may end up causing that person to look back going, wait a minute. Um, I came in here for one thing, but then turn it around and go, you know what? This isn't very cool of me to do because these people are trying to do something better. And I am actually not on the same level as these people. And the influence from what these people are doing in bettering themselves may end up causing that person to sit back and go, you know what? I can't troll in this capacity anymore because I'm not doing any good. Yeah, it might be fun, sure. And in a way, we're, in a way, I know I've been guilty at some point of that, of trolling a little bit. But however, what was I actually doing it for? If it was just to be a jerkweed and be obnoxious, sure. But on the other side of it, if a person is doing that, then they may realize this really isn't being very productive. Here I am, I'm a 40-year-old person, and I'm doing something that's a 20-year-old behavior. And
Right.
then that will in turn go, oh, this isn't so much fun anymore.
The
It's lost its purpose. It's lost its reason. So I still hold to that it starts with the individual because without the individual helping teach others to hold to a standard of their principles, then that will influence the culture. That will
It will, but it
influence that.
also still relies on there being a shared value system.
I agree. I agree.
Yes.
And I'm not saying don't share. I'm saying that if there is a group of people that do align with that and that see it eye to eye, then there will be a definite change. There will be a definite standard in that culture that the whole culture is going to be held to. Because in really and truly, the leaders are what set the tone. They set the precedent. Because without the leaders, the followers are going to do what they're going to do. A tribe has a older group of people that in turn that are turned to for how do
Elder.
yeah, the elders, or maybe the older people in the community, the people that have experience that have walked in that area that still continue to. And they go, hey, where are we messing up? Or one of those might speak up and go, hey guys, is this really so smart? Who are you trying to impress? And
Well,
that, go ahead.
one of the challenges that I'm struggling with in your exploration here
Yeah.
is that it puts the central authority on the individual. Now, I don't have a problem with people taking individual authority over their own lives, but we're talking about the moral compass and direction of a community.
Right.
And when you start making the highest authority the individual, then that creates a lot of that creates a real challenge, because now you're also relying on that individual's personal experience, their personal exposure to different concepts, their exposure to the world. A lot of it is going to be oriented to their personal experience. And when you're getting into cultural value systems, when you're getting into tribal value systems, when you're getting into community value systems,
Mm-hmm.
it there it is very beneficial to have an authority above the individual
Right.
that can be seen as the authority to which to appeal, so that your personal bias, your personal objections
Mm-hmm.
may be kept in check.
Right.
And often that happens outside of your individual capability. But coming up with that higher authority, coming up with that higher notion, this is where that principle of first principles comes in. And let's be clear about what's meant by the concept of first principles. First principles means the agreed upon core fundamental value of which we are all going to say this is undeniable. This is absolute truth. There's
Right.
no mitigating, there's no getting around it, there's no objection to this that has any bearing. Because of this first principle, this gives us a place to begin to start building the rest of things. If
Yeah.
we don't agree on the first principle, then if we don't, and that's why it's the first principle. If we don't agree on this fundamental truth, then the rest of it falls apart, and
Right.
nothing else that follows can hold structurally. So we
Right.
all need to come to a point where we agree on a first principle on which to build a community moral system. That being said, the community moral system needs to exist at some level of authority above an individual or beyond an individual.
Right. 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 And
I would I
and
would think maybe something upon the lines of I commit my life to the force, but that would be a difficult one to ride with too. I know, but I mean, it is pretty much
I'm not trying to define a first principle in this conversation. That would be a very, very long conversation to try
right.
to
Right.
to try to
But
reverse engineer
let's
back to
but
what would
okay.
be a Jedi first principle.
But
But
let's
that notion of
we're here all day.
is the individual authority sufficient
mhm.
to do what you're talking about, Tao? And I don't know that the answer is yes. I'm not
Well,
sure.
and that's where, yes, as individuals, we do have to develop ourselves. Okay. And that in itself is a long process. And however, though, if we are always worried about the culture, then that is where the idealism can come in of that. And what you were saying, Miles, and I agree, is that if we follow only what is out there, then we're not going to be holding to ourselves. We have
If
to still, in a way, maintain an independent thinking of things to help maintain a clarity. And that truth that you're mentioning is that this is where we can find those truths to help.
if I may, I think that uh the expectation that can be formed within groups or that the individual can be pushing is like can be a consequence in this when it's pushed.
Could you elaborate, please?
Well, we're talking about idealism.
Real quick,
the
I
pushing.
just want to make a note that in 3 minutes, somebody else's class is supposed to start.
Yeah, no worries, no worries, no worries. This has been good though. I love it though. This has been good. So yeah, okay. Go ahead and finish what you're saying real quick, and then we'll have to move on.
So with idealisms, the pushing of expectations can be on a individual level or on a group level. And I'm thinking of this as we're pushing the concept of how these principles are enacted in that sense.
Okay. All right. So with the other class getting ready to start in just a couple of minutes, let's call it here. And thank you everybody for being here and letting me present. I appreciate it. It's been a good discussion.
Thank you, Dow. May the Dow be with you.
And with you as well. Thank you, everybody. You'll have a good day.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dow. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, no worries. You're welcome.